Namaskar, Nileshok here, and welcome back to the course on Introduction to Indian Calendar. In this module, we are going to continue our journey looking for different elements related to the sun. So everything solar, and in this specific module, we will explore solar months and their names in the ancient Indian tradition, their names as they are familiar to us in the Gregorian calendar. We will also look at the seasons as they are understood in the ancient Indian tradition and also the Indian calendar tradition. And briefly, we will also revisit the tropical solar year and the sidereal solar year. In ancient Indian times, there were multiple different calendars for different purposes existing and actually coexisting at any given time. Now, these calendars had multiple beginnings because there were multiple calendars, and these beginnings had again a specific purpose. Sometime a specific calendar began with a specific cardinal point, either from the day of the vernal equinox, from the day of summer solstice, or from the day of autumnal equinox, or from the day of winter solstice. Some calendars began from the first day of the specific seasons, and other calendars began from the first day of the specific Indian lunar month. These calendars had very specific purposes. Much of the knowledge about their origin is now lost. However, we can see the evidence about their existence in ancient times. Sometimes the evidence is direct, sometimes the evidence is indirect and therefore inferred. We will also look at the 12 solar months from the ancient Indian calendar and also from the modern Gregorian calendar. For a long time, and we don't know how long was this, the Indian solar months are not to be seen in the current Indian calendars. And we don't exactly know when their use in Indian calendars was discontinued. And then finally, we will look at the 6 seasons of Vasanta, Grishma, Varsha, Sharad, Hemanta, and Shishir. Imagine the earth at the center, inclined at an angle, and the sun going around the earth and noted down at different points along the ecliptic. So if we want to go through a complete cycle of a solar year, we will begin with the day of vernal equinox or spring equinox. That corresponds to about 21st, 22nd March in the Gregorian calendar. And the tropical solar year would be complete when the sun returns to this exact point of the next vernal equinox. On the other hand, we also noticed that for the sun to come back to the same point or close to the same point of the vernal equinox, but not with respect to its position that matches with vernal equinox, but rather with respect to the background star or a specific distance with respect to the background star. It takes additional 20 minutes in comparison to the tropical solar year. And we call that sidereal solar year. And in the previous module, we explain how this difference in the sidereal solar year and the tropical solar year is due to the phenomenon known as the precession of the Earth's axis. Let us look at the Indian names for the solar months. The Indian solar calendar begins with the day of vernal equinox. So the first month is here, and that is the second month of the Vasanta Rutu or spring season. However, I'm going to note down the two solar months of the Vasanta Rutu or the spring season as listed in the ancient Indian narratives. For example, Taittiriya Samhita. So the first month of the Vasanta Rutu or spring season is Madhu, and the second month of the Vasanta Rutu again or spring season is Madhava. Now keep that in mind. The solar year begins on the day of vernal equinox, which is a midway point of the Vasanta Rutu, spring season. And therefore, in the solar calendar, Madhava is the first month of the year. Next, we will have the season of summer or Grishma Rutu, and the two solar months that correspond to Grishma Rutu or summer season are Shukra and Shuchi. The next two solar months corresponding to the Varsha Rutu or rainy season are Nabha and Nabhasya. Next two solar months corresponding to Sharad Rutu or pre-autumn season are Isha and Urja. Next 2 months corresponding to Hemanta Rutu or autumn season are Saha and Sahasya. And finally, 2 solar months corresponding to Shishira Rutu or winter season are Tapa and Tapasya. Recall that we said in the previous modules that the duration that is required for sun to travel through 30 degrees of angular distance along the ecliptic as seen from the Earth may take anywhere from 29 days to 32 days. What that means is that the actual length or duration of the solar month can vary from 29 days to 32 days. Let us look at what is the scenario in our times, that is to say 21st century. In our times, Madhava would be of about 30 days, Shukra of 31 days, Shuchi of 31 days. Now, these are the numbers that most of us are used to because these are the lengths for some of the months in the Gregorian calendar. We will discuss the lengths of the solar months in the Gregorian calendar, and also the difference of those durations from the durations of the solar months you are seeing here in the Indian solar calendar. Now, interestingly, the month of Nabha in our times has a length of 32 days. Navasya, 31 days. Isha, 31 days. Urja, 30 days. Sah, 30 days. Sahasya, 30 days. Tapa has actual length of 29 days. Tapasya, 30 days. And Madhu, 30 days. And this is what we meant by the statement that the duration of the solar month can range from anywhere from 29 days to 32 days. Let us look at the demonstration simulation. Earth at the center, inclined at an angle. And this is the plane of the ecliptic, shown by the yellow circle, which is the path of the sun as seen from the Earth. And that forms the reference point for Indian astronomy, modern astronomy, and therefore for Indian calendar. Moon goes around the Earth and sun goes around the Earth as seen from the Earth. Let's introduce our reference system of 27 nakshatras and also introduce the seasons again. We will begin with the first day of the solar year, that is with the day of vernal equinox. In our simulation, that day happens to be the day of Amavasya. Therefore, as seen from the Earth, the sun and moon would be together. In fact, we would not observe the moon. The first month of the solar year is Madhava, and that happens to be the second month of the Vasanta Rutu or spring season. And by the time sun travels through 30 degrees from the point of vernal equinox, the Vasanta Rutu is over and the first solar month of the year is over. The Madhava is over. And now sun is entering the area of a Grishma Rutu and the first month of Shukra. This Shukra is the name of the solar month, the first solar month of the Grishma Rutu, and is not to be confused with the Graha Shukra or planet Shukra. Now sun is traveling through the area of Grishma Rutu. After about 30 days, the first month of Grishma would be over, and then the month of Shuchi, the second month of Grishma Rutu begins. And at the end of Grishma, the sun would be at the point of summer solstice. Then the Varsha Rutu begins, the rainy season, and the first solar month of Varsha Rutu is Nabha. When the first month of the Varsha Rutu is over, The second month of the Varsha Rutu or rainy season is Nabhasya. And when the Nabhasya ends, that is the end of Varsha Rutu and Sharad Rutu begins. The first month of Sharad Rutu is called Isha. And when we reach the point of autumnal equinox, that is the halfway, midway point of the Sharad Rutu, and that signifies the end of the first solar month of the Sharad Rutu, that is Isha. And now the second month begins, which is Urja. At the end of Sharad Rutu and the end of Urja solar month, we are now entering Hemanta Rutu. The first month, the first solar month of the Hemanta Rutu is Saha. And the second month of Hemanta Rutu is Sahasya. At the end of Hemanta Rutu, the sun would arrive at the point of winter solstice. This is the end of Hemanta Rutu and the beginning of a Shishira Rutu or winter season. The first month of Shishira Rutu or winter season is Tapa or Tapas. And the second month of Shishira Rutu or winter season is Tapasya. At this point, sun would enter the area of Vasanta Rutu, and first month of the Vasanta Rutu is Madhu. And at the end of Madhu, sun would arrive at the point of vernal equinox. When it matches the point of vernal equinox, that duration is the duration of the tropical solar year. However, if we are looking at the reference position of the sun with respect to a background nakshatra and a specific point, a specific distance separation with respect to the particular nakshatra, arriving at the exactly same point at the same reference distance, the time taken is 20 minutes longer than it takes for one tropical solar year, and that's called sidereal solar year. Now, against this Indian solar year and the different names for the Indian solar months, in the Gregorian calendar, we have different names for the solar months. Also, it begins at a somewhat arbitrary point. It begins on 1st January, right? But where does 1st January occurs with respect to the true celestial clock? It occurs about 8 to 9 days after the day of winter solstice. Winter solstice being around 21st, 22nd December. So the 1st January would be somewhere here. That is where the new year begins per the Gregorian calendar. And the duration or durations for each of the solar months of the Gregorian calendar, namely January, February, March, all the way to December, are also arbitrary. And what we mean by arbitrary is that whereas in the Indian solar calendar, the duration of a given solar month is equal to the time taken by the sun to travel through 30 degrees of angular distance along the ecliptic. That is not the criteria in the Gregorian calendar. So in that sense, Gregorian calendar is arbitrary based on where exactly it begins, which is 1st of January, and based on the specific durations of each of the solar months. It does not have a direct correspondence with the reality of the celestial clock. However, the Gregorian calendar does a good job in matching the days of the cardinal points of this celestial clock. That is to say, the entire focus of the Gregorian calendar is to ensure that the traditional days of the Gregorian calendar for the cardinal points continue to stay that way, which means the day of vernal equinox should match with 22nd, 23rd of March. The day of summer solstice should match with 21st of June. The day of autumnal equinox should match with 20th of September. And the day of winter solstice should match with 21st, 22nd of December. In this regard, Gregorian calendar does a decent job. However, the Gregorian calendar is removed from the background reference system of nakshatras, or a background reference system of 12 zodiac. It is removed from the background celestial clock in terms of the first day of the year, and it is removed from the background celestial clock in terms of the specific duration of each solar month.